intended to be our last stakeholder committee meeting, and it's been very helpful to have you all. Thank you for your dedication to staying with us. And then as we talk next steps, this isn't the end. This is just the beginning, as they say. So we'll go forward. Real quick here, just recapping, I think everybody here now, or just about everybody, has been on our previous meeting. So this is a recap slide, but the draft strategies coming that we'll be talking about here orient and are aligned with the plan principles that you see at the bottom of the slide. And of course, we're talking in general, longer range planning. The material in the spreadsheet that we will be focused on today, and that's actually in these slides, I've broken things apart, is, aligned with these. And we will talk about priorities. Some of them will be more near term, and some of them are things that we've talked about before, are longer term concerns that will be more ongoing planning. Go ahead, Jen. And so as the stakeholder committee, just to remind you, it's the questions in the left-hand column that we're really thinking about at this point in the process as we develop the draft plan content. And you'll basically see what that is in the subsequent slides here. So really reflect on priorities. We've done some initial identification based on all that we've heard from you all and from the public workshop back in February and other discussions that have been had, but it's still time for us to continue to talk about, what issues need to be addressed most immediately and what things have a longer time horizon. Go ahead. So you've seen this before, but just to orient yourself to the geographic distribution of what has come out of this planning process, here's a map of the general area, and the goldish colored markings, dots and lines, are those things that came out of transportation assessments. So that could be the coastal corridor study work and related. And that doesn't mean to say they didn't come out of the public or stakeholder input either. In many cases, there was both. And then the blue is more the things that came out of public input, as well as stakeholder committee and so forth. So we will be talking about those in the majority of this meeting. And then ultimately, as we come out of May 18th, again, that's the public information session, the process going forward will be to build on what we've created as this draft plan and the framework and add the details that you see at the bottom of the slide in the matrix here. So we'll want to be fleshing that out going forward. And in particular, it'll be things like adding information about who's going to lead the issue, what kind of a timeline, figuring out costs, and then programmatically getting those things in the queue, as they say. Go ahead. So this set of slides, while it might not be perfectly in sequence, it generally is what was circulated, I guess it was 2 days ago now. Tuesday, I had sent around a meeting reminder and included an attachment that contains basically the matrix, the full list of information that you see at the bottom of each slide here now. So we'll look through. I think we can be fairly quick since we have looked at these before. Last meeting, we talked about and looked at a number of these details. So since then, since the last meeting, we connected with the towns and we did some follow-up. And so again, we want to talk about priorities. I'm going to pause here for a second. Jen, you and anyone else can chime in, but I'm thinking we could go through all of them and then circle back, or we could stop with each one and talk about priorities. It's kind of like 6 one, half dozen of another.
Let's run through all the slides, and those of you that are stakeholders and participating, make notes as we go. So that way we can circle back and kind of get your kind of feel for what you think the priorities should be. And then we'll kind of do a ranking and send them out to you after that. So let's go through all of them first.
Sounds good. All right, so first of all, here we're going to kind of focus on the US 13 corridor. This is at the north end, Greenwood area, just outside. So the intersection basically of SR 16, US 13. The issue suggestion here, strategy here, is you've got an area that was identified as a crash hotspot, pedestrian safety enhancement opportunities in the vicinity here. You know, you've got definitely land uses alongside and even sidewalks and destinations that people want to get to. So enhancements to pedestrian opportunities, and then also infrastructure upgrades. There's traffic signal infrastructure that needs updating has been identified by DelDOT Traffic. So those are three things. The recommendation is to move forward working with the local community in the town to implement that full signal rebuild, add pedestrian signalization, upgrading for peds and bikes, and so forth through the intersection. The status here, we connected with Janet in the town, and she had mentioned in previous meetings that this is something on the radar of the police chief, Mr. Thomas, and so we'll be circling back with him. That's the next immediate step to move forward with strategies in this area.
I have a question. This is Janet.
Yeah,
and
hi,
Chief
Janet.
Thomas is here with me too. So
great.
At that intersection there, when you say you're talking about pedestrian safety enhancement, are you talking about the signs like you can walk in 10 seconds, or what exactly are you talking about putting there?
We haven't gotten to that level of specificity. Yeah, I think for now, you know, leave it broad. It would be what would enhance safety and accessibility for pedestrians. So it could be added crosswalks. You see there's not that zebra crosswalk or piano key type crosswalk in this vicinity. It could be added curb ramps, you know, upgrading it to standards. That would be generally speaking. Those types of things would be considered.
I've got Chief Thomas here with me, and he's got a comment about that intersection.
Sure.
That intersection there that you're talking about, the right there, Sussex Highway and 16. Our main issue is tractor trailers trying to make a left turn to head eastbound on Beach Highway. Because once we get people to pull up to the light, if they're not paying attention or if they're too far forward, they have to back up. So a lot of our accidents are coming from people trying to back up so the tractor trailer can make that swing, and they're backing into cars behind them. So I don't know if there's a way we can change that intersection up and push tractor trailers down further to make a turn, because that is a tight turn in the mornings.
Can we pull that up on Google Earth just real briefly, Andrea? Thank you.
Yep.
And Chief, I totally understand what you're saying, because I've had to back up, I think, a couple times myself.
You share now.
And on that same topic, while we're talking about it, as the town, there's not a lot of foot traffic at that intersection. Just a side note.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't usually see anybody walking either, but is it because there isn't facilities and they're scared, or is it because it's just not feasible?
There's really nothing really to walk to. You have Bates to the Beach on one corner, you have It's All Country on the other, and then you have the Andy's restaurant and the liquor store. I very rarely see any foot traffic going up there. If I do, it's coming from the northbound side of the southbound lane where they walk up the shoulder of the highway and cross over.
I've
The
seen
only people that really cross over every day is the Bates to the Beach employees. They park to the big parking lot down the corner to the left where your hand. Yep, they park there. They walk across the street to the building. So that's the only foot traffic I see on a daily basis.
Okay, I've seen people walking behind the Discover Bank too from time to time, almost like they're coming across to get to Royal Farms.
Occasionally, you'll have some stragglers come through there. A lot of times, if they access, they'll come through Pennywell Street, which is down a little further between the bank and the firehouse, and they'll walk down that street there, and then they'll cross over. But that's very sporadic that we see that. But on a daily basis, Bates to the Beach employees, they cross over every morning and afternoon.
That's good to know. Thank you. I just wanted to, and Andrew, can you pull out just a little bit? I just want to see a little more of, okay. A little further north. Okay. Yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, good.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, I'll let, actually, you know what? I do have the PowerPoint I can share now too, if you'd prefer.
Okay, sure.
Let's see, let me unshare and then share the other screen. Bear with me. All right, here we are. So just down south slightly, a couple intersections is the next strategy or concern and strategy recommendation. We've talked about this. We've got the early childhood center and a couple things going on. There's ingress egress concerns that were brought up. Also the playground down here, and just more generally speaking, this area being a school zone, strategies to address the concerns that were raised, implementing results of a signal warrant study, exploring the possibility of designating it as a school zone, installing signals or temporary type controls for using during the school day and beginning of day. And the status of this is that DelDOT Planning has initiated connection on this issue. Moving the playground. And is there anything else you wanted to add, Jen, on this topic?
This is Chief Thomas again. I was contacted by the school asking about their daily routine of drop off and pickup and there's 14 buses that we have that leave there every day. Whenever we have an officer available, we typically try to have them out there at Rock Road and Sussex Highway to stop traffic. However, we're not always available.
Right.
And they were, I guess, going to do a study to see if they were to put a light there, not an actual stoplight, but a light that would help slow traffic down.
Right. We have,
type of light, but
believe I got your comment, your email sent, and I turned it over to our traffic team to inquire about getting one of those activate when needed signals outside for the buses. So you have not heard back from anybody in our traffic team yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, I will follow up with them. It might not be till fall. I just know our traffic study team, and I see Kevin shaking his head. Yeah, Kevin, it might not be till fall. I'm not sure, but it's the request is in, and I'll just stay on top of them in regards to how long this is going to take to get it out there. But my hope and dream is that it'll be activated by fall. I don't see any reason, and I don't see any reason they wouldn't have the slow speed signs out, Kevin, as well. So go ahead. What did you?
Yeah, I wanted to touch base. Our board approved a new playground to be moved back from here, from the highway for security reasons.
Yeah, that's good. Thank
you. We intend to have that completed, hopefully before the start of next school year.
Okay.
And then eventually dismantling the existing playground once that's all completed. So we're hopeful to have that done before the start of next school year.
Okay.
The last thing I heard about the study was they started the traffic study about around Rock Road, and something happened where there was a fault or something that it didn't capture the data they wanted. So they went back and did it again. And then at that point, we haven't heard anything else. So.
Oh, okay. So they've been out there, you said.
They've been out there. We've
Okay.
had some emails just saying they were going to place I believe a camera out there to see.
Cool.
Do
Okay.
a study for data. So that's kind of where we are right now.
That's good news. They don't keep me posted, so I always have to kind of ask, like, hey, where are we? What's going on? Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right. Again, moving further down US 13 down to Redden. This is also an intersection, and then Redden Road more generally is one where there's some crashes happening and identified in the coastal corridor study. There were concerns raised about the approaches to the intersection on both sides from Redden and some permissive lefts. That means the signal itself shows green and allows people going in both directions to proceed through. So there were some concerns raised about that. As far as recommendations go, suggestion at this point is implementing recommendations from ongoing study that's currently underway to evaluate that intersection operation. And then also improvement possibilities could include things like signal phase retiming and some additional lane markings, because that was something that was also identified by stakeholders as not entirely clear. The lane markings start pretty far back from the intersection. So once you get up close, if you weren't paying attention, you might not realize you can only turn left from the left-hand lane and so forth. And again, moving further down here, US 13 at Newton Road, concerns generally about the large vehicle traffic, turning and merging, conflicts associated with that, and some perceived safety concerns at this intersection. Not a crash hotspot specifically, and therefore the recommendation is to consider initiating a crash study to evaluate any challenges that would be identified, and if findings were to indicate a need for further adjustments, it could be things like lane reconfigurations or other, then that could proceed to a safety study. US 13 Rifle Range Road, there were some general safety concerns raised here, and you'll see this in a few other cases. It's not a spot that was necessarily identified by studies yet as having rising to that level, but it could be considered to address through initiating a safety study. Then US 13 at Adams Road. So this is near the Delaware Electric Cooperative. That movements from some of the large vehicles associated with the electric cooperative were raised as a concern, and particularly routing when there's kind of larger numbers of trucks, convoys that would be associated with a storm event. And speaking of that, I imagine there may have been some of that going on 3 weeks ago when the storms came through that area. And so, yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Just wanted to say that we have reached out to the co-op. They are welcoming us onto the property to kind of gauge what's going on. Kevin, if you have any information, I don't know if there's ever some conflicts with the buses. I know that's one of the routes that people do take to get to the high school campus, because I know we went up that way when we were coming for the football game with the Milford School Band. So let us know, or if you want to be a part of the team out there on the ground to take a look at it, let me know. More than happy to have you looped in.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay.
Jen, you got that one, so I'll move on. All right, this is US 13 at Passwater Farm Road, which, if you can't read the label, that's this road that serves kind of as the access to parts of Heritage Shores closer down in the Bridgeville area. The concern here was people, I think this was a little bit more of an inquiry, but people concerned about commercial access directly onto Main Street 404. And the situation is that commercial developments and such that would be coming in here would be accessed from Passwater's Farm Road. So recommendation is pretty straightforward, just continue monitoring and coordination. The Corridor Capacity Preservation Program is operating in this corridor, and so that is actually kind of partly why you see these roads that come off to the side. The focus of that program is to route traffic so that it's safely accessing the main highways and major arterials and such. And so,
and just an quick update to that. Nothing's finalized yet, but I did get the go-ahead from Speaker Schwarzkopf, who carries a pretty heavy stick, to update the Corridor Capacity Preservation Program and make it better, more effective, and to be able to include some more types of state maintained roads based on functional classification in regards to how we can mitigate some of the impacts incoming development has on our corridor, our state maintained corridor. So stay tuned. More to come on that one.
Great. And moving again further south, US 13 at the southern entrances to Heritage Shores. I think this one came from our public workshop, but there were a handful of folks raising concerns about safety of ingress and egress at some of these entrances. Left turning vehicles and then associated speeds in some cases, with some perceived shorter left turn lanes. So the recommendation here, this actually, generally speaking, there's a crossover removal plan. And right now the specific timing of that is not firm. So we don't have details, but ultimately that would result in right in, right out. So you would not be crossing over through the median area. Back up to Newton Road now in general, not Newton Road at 13, but just Newton and Newton at Adams. The intersection here, that came up a number of times at the workshop, certainly close proximity. One of the issues was, people using this road kind of as a diversion route, those folks that maybe aren't as local, but also then traffic associated with school during the school year and just concerns about safety. There's also a curve out here, and that was something that was part of identified through this process as well. So recommended to review the crash data at the intersection, conduct a curve study, and realignment could be the ultimate solution. Obviously, there would be some significant implications with property impacts were this to be, straightened out, smoothed out. And so that would be something to be considered going forward.
And as we look at that, I'm just going to point out the obvious, which is that we really need to realign Adams as well, to make things a little more comfortable. So stay tuned. We will make sure that that concept gets kind of looped into that curve adjustment for sure.
Okay, zooming out a bit, the full corridor of Newton. This is, of course, an alternate route for a bit of traffic. Concerns were raised about safety generally in operations, particularly because there are large vehicles and some industrial type activity that occurs in a number of places in this corridor, and the concern about this roadway being used for through traffic, beach related traffic in some cases, and no paved shoulder existing. So recommendation at this point would be more of, both a long-term, and I think it has some longer-term implications that are pretty strong, but, addressing this with ongoing monitoring and planning. So this would be something to keep an eye on over the long term, as well as perhaps some shorter-term crash data analysis to see if any further safety improvements are needed in the nearer term. And without notable crash patterns, just continue to look at it for longer term enhancements and adjustments as needed. Okay, now out SR 404 a bit, I'd say this is an area that is high priority, definitely based on the number of comments we've received and then just, observationally as well. This area is in particular the one that came up most. So are familiar, it's got this kind of awkward movement for people turning left, sometimes confusing for vehicles aiming to go east on Scott Store Road, and then a number of other kind of navigational concerns along here with a lot going on, frankly. There's really no shoulder along a segment here, and just, some definite issues identified. So moving forward, doing a study to evaluate and identify how to improve this intersection, definitely in doing so, looking at the crash data and then developing some concepts to revise geometries and better define movements. Jen, anything else on this one?
Just want to say that there's some higher level conversations happening too in regards to what we look at going forward. We're having some conversations about how much advanced planning we need to do, even though we don't have kind of the numbers that would make it kind of a pertinent problem. We do know that the expansion of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, right, is going to definitely encourage people to come more people to come. And so what do we need to look at? How do we adjust or prepare for that? So having conversations, don't want anybody to think that just because it doesn't show up here in our recommendations that it's not happening. It is. So stay tuned. More to come on that probably later this year.
And then more broadly, SR 36, you see here, it was raised as having some concerns amongst the public and stakeholders. No rumble strips, some of the curves that occur, and those in particular up closer into and actually in Greenwood. So again, similar strategies, reviewing crash data and really evaluating the need for some enhancements to address those concerns.
I believe I am. The intersection at 16 and 36 is a potential candidate for the CTP this year. I don't know if it will rank high enough to get accepted, but it is getting submitted as a potential candidate for improvement.
Okay, and then I was alluding to this, but through Greenwood on 36, Market Street, it's got a lot of names, 16. On either side of the railroad here, this curve had been noted in the safe corridor study under corridor coastal corridors, reviewing the crash data and evaluating need for potential enhancements here. This is a little tricky, obviously, because it's in a more constrained area in town. Speed limit is 25, and so speeds at that would not hopefully merit any sort of pavement super elevation. Then building on that, this is also a definite high priority based on the town's feedback and based more generally on other feedback we received, but pedestrian activity in this area being relatively high, and so identifying the importance of having safe crossings for pedestrians. And there's the cafe that is popular and another handful of other destinations. So
Janet, just real quick, on that note, I did have a conversation with one of our other consultants today. I had pulled up the town of Milton and their recent painted crossings in their municipal limits. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can pull it up so I can show you what I'm talking about. But the team that I was speaking with is going to try to find out how Milton was able to get approval from DelDOT to do this in mid-block crossings as well as on state maintained street. So give me 1 second. It was a pretty big initiative. I'm going to share real quick, Andrea. I'm sorry.
yeah, no
I'm
problem.
going to steal your screen. Where they looped in the community and kind of created something very unique. Obviously, some of these are at marked intersections, but some of them were kind of mid-block as well. So I think once we have the information as to the how we get this done or how Milton was able to accomplish this, here's a mid-block crossing right here, as a matter of fact. As you can see, they do obviously have the ADA infrastructure prior to putting in, and then they would need the white blocks on the outside. But it is something that I'm recommending to other municipalities. How Milton got the approval from us, I will make sure I send that along to you.
Those are pretty nice.
They're awesome. That's all I'm gonna say. And the kids, a lot of the kids designed some of these. So at the Cape Henlopen Open School District. So pretty impressive.
All right, I stole back the
Yep,
screen.
you're good. Yep.
Okay. Governor's Avenue, we're still in Greenwood here. The concern was raised about some larger trucks navigating and not following the routing, the signed routing patterns. So taking Church Street, which causes some pain on a narrow turn. And as far as moving forward, addressing that, as I said, the town has it signed, as I understand, to direct the truck traffic to the correct roadways. But of course, GPS oftentimes overrides what people see on signage. So we certainly can explore, and we'll be putting in some thoughts that are addressing it from the sort of innovation it's all emerging, right, with GPS technology. So we'll be exploring that, but then also consider conducting some corridor study to identify any other opportunities that might help address this issue.
It might be as simple as like us working with the platforms like Google and Waze and having them say, are you a truck, right? Like, and how many axles do you have? Like something where it would identify what type of vehicle they are in prior to giving them a route, right? And so we would make sure then that the information that is provided to those types of vehicles is correct and current. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's
I hate
not,
to keep saying that, but yes.
It's certainly not a new issue. It's being addressed and dealt with, or raised, I should say, all over the country in similar contexts to this. But from what I can tell, it's not been fully solved. So, but it is being worked on. All right, Adams Road between Mile Stretch and Woodbridge, so that's to the west of the towns. This curve has been identified as an issue in the roadway sufficiency assessment. So reviewing crash data and evaluating the need for some enhancements and strategies like a center line rumble strip, for example. Let's see. I think this one actually kind of was covered. We talked about it on a previous slide associated with Newton, so I'm going to skip over this one. Seems redundant.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, yeah, monitoring crash data. All right, Redden Road. This is actually one that's already been included in the capital transportation program. So things to come, but in general, folks had raised some concerns about safety, speeds, intersections, and so forth. Jen, anything else you want to add on that?
No, just that, again, that was bubbled up to the top during 2020. So we are looking at it. We will definitely be making safety improvements along the entire corridor.
Okay, Blanchard Road, again, some curves. So I hate to make it super redundant. Reviewing the crash data and evaluating needs for interventions is what would be recommended.
Can we loop all of those or kind of lump all those together and just kind of do like, you know, road trajectory or whatever we want to call it, and then list out each one of the segments?
Yep.
Thank you.
Noted. Noted. This one, I think, came out of public workshop, Mile Stretch Road, folks indicating the condition of it is not ideal. We checked, it was last repaved in 2012. And so naturally, milling and overlaying would be the strategy to go forward. Potentially it could be paid for with community transportation funds and the local elected official. Then Woodbridge Road, near the intersection of 36, where you see the pink dot here, the corridor sufficiency assessment identified utility poles very close to the edge of the pavement. So again, that would be evaluating the crash data to understand if there's really a pattern of problems or if maybe it's not as high priority. SR 16 and 36, Jen, you mentioned this already. The issue raised was just people generally not, some people, the concern, some people not stopping at this three-way intersection. And you know what? I'm sorry, I realize I'm looking at one screen and I'm circling things with the mouse, but but you're not seeing that, so. All right, Sugar Hill Road, between Johnstown Road and Fawn Road, here a curve was identified. To your point, Jen, we will lump that in with the other ones. Also, no center line was noted. So it is a narrow roadway, which is generally 18 feet too narrow for a center line, but crash data can be reviewed and considered for additional interventions like chevrons for the curve and so forth.
Agreed.
Should they be needed. Fawn Road, I recall this from the workshop. A few people raised concerns about sight distance at some of the intersections. And again, reviewing crash data to see if there truly is a pattern and evaluating the need for some trimming and removal of vision obscuring vegetation. This is just outside to the west side of Bridgeville, but there's this crossover, and in talking to the town, it's kind of like a shortcut for people, because just north, there's also, is it Market up there? I think so, where folks can head into town. But the concern here is that people are not stopping and kind of speeding through. This is a railroad, of course. So the next step would be visiting the location. We can, the town of Bridgeville together with DelDOT and considering some sort of follow-up should that be needed. However, Railroad Avenue is not a state road. Then US 13 down at 18 and Camp Road. This is the incoming 7-Eleven here. Traffic safety, and then also kind of up in this extent, there's some industrial activity, some environmental concerns were raised generally back closer to when the public workshop was happening actually. So the recommendation strategy is to monitor crash and traffic data and also continue the long range planning, because this is certainly an area that is also impacted by that broader regional traffic patterns that Jen mentioned. And this actually, I already just spoke of this, so unless there's something else to add, Jen. Oh, I think you're muted, or I'm not hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Unless somebody has been by the 7-Eleven to let us know if there is a right-hand turn off of the highway directly into the 7-Eleven, because there's not supposed to be. Bethany had thought she had seen a direct access, and we did not get feedback from that yet. If not, I'm going to take a drive out there myself and take a look.
I'm pretty sure there is a direct turn lane into the 7-Eleven. I rode by this weekend.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So anytime you guys see anything directly off of one of our highways, please let us know. That's not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be taking access off the the lower classification road, which is Cannon Road. So, oh, she is on the call. Oh, that was Kevin. Okay. So I thought I saw Bethany's name.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you guys see anything like that, always just hey, by the way, is this supposed to be there? Because the entrance that I see where I think that it might be was actually supposed to be their construction entrance, I believe, but that's supposed to go away. So I need to find out what's from our development coordination group and then also from county. Once they have start of occupancy, that's not supposed to be there any longer. So just to confirm, they are open. Yes, Kelly?
They were not open when I rode by this past weekend.
Oh, okay. So then,
No, they
okay.
still had odd prices up on the board, and they still had construction crew running in and out.
Then okay, then that they can have that entrance until they are complete. So okay, that makes sense to me then. I thought we were fully operational and had that entrance still. Okay.
All right, I'm keeping an eye on the time. We're getting close. Just a few more slides too, so it could be perfect timing. SR 18, this is further east of US 13, but there's this intersection with Oak Road, and the concern raised was that you've got a couple of mobile home parks with a relatively high amount of pedestrian activity getting to the corner store. Strategy moving forward would be to explore options for some near-term enhancements for pedestrians. The road doesn't really have a shoulder, so maybe a shoulder shared use path. But then for sure, long-term, looking at this area and seeing what other enhancements could be made to connect to, locations where people are trying to get to. This other the area a little bit outside to the east of the town of Bridgeville also is generally speaking an area that looks like it might be a growth area in the longer term future. So yeah,
And there's
keep an eye
transit. There's literally transit at the grocery store too. So that is connecting the people that live out there with the municipality. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Oops, did I skip over one? I think I did. Yeah. Cannon Road, the Wilson Farm Road, Conroe Road intersection, people concerned about folks just doing rolling stops and the safety of speeding vehicles and so forth. Comments were from the workshop in particular. And again, strategy would be to review the crash data to see if there are patterns and then consider implementing a safety study to address those. And also on SR 18 at Coverdale Road, safety concern here, just the lack of passing opportunities and a dedicated right turn lanes. And then this curve being a concern. So conducting a study would be, again, the recommended strategy here. Okay, and then more broadly, SR 404 certainly has been brought up over the course of this study or process in general in terms of traffic and operations. We've talked about some of the specifics, but more broadly, heavy traffic and where does that head in the future? So this is a long-term or longer-term one that we'll be keeping an eye on and certainly monitoring and iteratively planning, as time goes on to adjust and proactively identify how to address it going forward. And with that, Jen, I want to respect people's time, but I also wanted to give people the opportunity. The next slide and kind of the last thing is for us to talk about the upcoming workshop. I don't have a lot to say. I just wanted to make a few comments, so that should be a couple minutes. But can we take a minute here to hear from everyone on the call and just make sure, does this sound right? Did you think of anything where you had a question or you want to raise something as a high priority? What feedback do you have? We'll spend a few minutes here. And we'll wait for a few more seconds, but it's sounding pretty quiet. Gotta see if I can. Rear, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so on your document, over to the right where it says priority, low, medium, high, are we supposed to respond to that, or is this discussion that, or have those I see high is marked for a couple of them, high, medium. I didn't know if you're in the process of ranking or if that's the feedback you're asking for now.
Exactly. Yep. So as we've prepared this, we've identified a few based on the conversations that have been had. And of course, it's easiest to say, hey, we've heard the most about this issue. Let's make that one high. But yes, exactly. This is where we'd like some discussion. If you have other thoughts, you have, other feedback, or you just agree and say, yep, I think that should be high. This is the good time. And then the public information session in May is also when we'll be listening for that feedback.
Right. So I would imagine the other people in the conversation have had, the opportunity to head to 404 and the Bay Bridge using Route 16 and 36 at various times of day and night, like I have. But what I've noticed is more and more out-of-state travelers are using that that route and not going down to Bridgeville, on 404. They're cutting through Greenwood on a couple different roads to get there. And I have found it doesn't matter what day of the week, month of the year, time of day. I'm seeing that out-of-state traffic, and in many cases, they're flying. They see it as a way to make up time. It seems sometimes they do the speed limit, but not often. And that is an area for concern. And I wasn't sure, how much of a priority that is, but just wanted to get that on your radar. I think a lot of the things that you brought up would be resolved with, I live just east of the Newton Road and 13 intersection, alternate 404, I guess some people call it. And the traffic backs up there at that light and at the Redden Road turn lane, even though it's been extended. I noticed all through the winter. It starts sometimes Wednesday nights, but certainly Thursdays and Fridays. And in looking at your list, I think a lot of problems are resolved by trying to keep that traffic on 404 and maybe, looking for another alternate route to bring them around to get them on Route 18 404. And off of turning right onto 13 and left onto Redden.
Oh, those conversations are definitely happening right now, Greer. Again, I've always envisioned Newton Road as more of a kind of freight movement versus to get to different things that are right in that vicinity. And I think we do need to explore other options for regular traffic movements.
Yeah, especially if the hydroponic farm comes to the corner of Newton and Adams. We know we're gaining the big Mount Air facility.
Right.
So
and that was my thought as well, right? Like, so we've got some more of the freight level stuff coming in kind of right there. So what does that mean for regular vehicle traffic? And maybe we do start now paying attention to, okay, so maybe we try to split some of that up and get the vehicles more comfortable and not having to always be mixed in with the freight. Obviously, people going north are going to still use the Newton Road, but definitely if we're able to tap into the southern route and connecting up to 18 and bringing them under Bridgeville as opposed to over, that could be an option that we can look at.
Oh, that's all I had.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
speaking
the
up.
opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And again, like, so for safety concerns and some of the curvature things, some of those roads obviously are, way out. Some of them considered way out in the middle of nowhere at this point. But even doing minor things like adding shoulders or some of the rumble strips or, things that we're able to improve by adding some safety features to is definitely going to be looked at sooner rather than later.
Awesome.
Well, our group has started to dwindle. I know we're over time, so I want to just wrap up here, and we'll be following up with an email for those who weren't able to participate. Just reminding about the workshop. Let me move forward on slides on the 18th of May. Let me rephrase that. Information session, because it's not going to be quite like the workshop that we had back in February. It will be more of a presentation format that we will hold. One same exact presentation, but we'll do two in the same evening. One from 4 to 5 at the Greenwood Public Library, one from 6 to 7 at Bridgeville Public Library. And we'll, take questions, give a summary of this entire process, and what you all have heard in a bit more detail, we'll summarize. We will have material on the web. We have a site. It's a new site where we can engage with the public a bit differently and in a way that's pretty efficient and effective. And that's linked through the flyer that I sent around. I'll send that around again, but please do share this information. Let us know if you don't see it at the library. We had wanted to get that up at the library, and I'll follow up to make sure it's getting posted, so folks that maybe aren't aware of this through the channels we've already got have another opportunity to make sure that they know they can come out and learn a bit more and give their thoughts. And then the last thing is just, there will be a survey, very simple survey associated with this final public information session as well, and that will be on the page, the public input page, and that will go live basically the 18th, maybe the 17th of May, and it will be up for roughly 3 weeks. I think June 10th is the date that we'll be wrapping it up, so we can have enough time to review the results and bring some conclusions together into the final plan. So with that, any last questions before we sign off, and look forward to seeing everyone hopefully in person if you can make it on the 18th. I don't see hands raising at this point.
Thank you, everybody. This has been such a great, I know it's been a quick process, but it's been a really great process to have so many people plugged into it. So we appreciate all of the dedication you've put forth. So
I second that. Yep.
Hope to see you out on May 18th.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Oh, thanks, Greer. Take care.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.